I want to thank the members of Fire Station 1 for having us in their house. Thank you very much. You don't get to see it like I do up close and personal. I've been with the city now nearly 10 years full time. We've got a lot of real heroes working for us. They do amazing things every single day. I'm just as honored as I can be to have had this opportunity in my life to serve with them, and I think it'd be appropriate if we gave them a round of applause for their sacrifice they made. Thank you. They are true heroes. I think we all saw that on April 27th, but they do it every single day, and I'm thankful they let us come over and spend time in their fire station. And we welcome you to Fire Station 1. This is probably the crown jewel of our fire station. We're very proud of it. We built it not only as a place of comfort for our men that work so hard here, but also a showcase for our city. A lot of times cities, and Tuscaloosa has followed that path of trying to use its municipal buildings to set a standard. We're working on a few things at City Hall. In fact, when I left, one of the things we were talking about were the riverfront in downtown. And interesting enough, for every $1 we've invested on the riverfront has generated $4 in private investment. Every $1 that we've generated in downtown, or we've invested downtown, has generated over $2 of private investment. So we've always seen, at least in my 9.5 years, that if we invest well, the private sector will follow behind us. And we've tried to do that with our public buildings. So I'm glad that you're here. We welcome you. Well, that being said, I'm going to jump right in. First, we wanted to highlight some of the smoke alarm installation that's been going on in this district since we're here at Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue. They've partnered with the American Red Cross in installing smoke alarms, places like Honey Hills, Gresham Circle, 33rd Avenue. We also have, and a lot of people don't know this, we have a firefighting academy at the Tuscaloosa Center of Technology Academy. This is a unique program that the city funds in coordination with the city schools, and it's to train the next generation of firefighter and fire and rescue. And so this has been a great model partnership, and if you ever get a chance to take a tour, we would love to show that program off to you. The neat thing about fire and rescue, and I don't mean to go down a rabbit trail, is what it's going to be in the years to come. About 86% of our calls last year were rescue-oriented, actually, and not fire-oriented. And the programs what our men are thinking of and putting in place as a response, as rescue response, we've got some exciting initiatives that are going to be coming in the months and years ahead, and they're going to lead it, and it's really going to make our community safer, and it's going to be exciting for all of us. In terms of projects that are going on, the 10th Avenue City Walk and road improvements continues to be under design. This is a very difficult project. It's probably going to be another year to a year and a half before any construction commences, could be up to 2 years. The difficulty with this project, number one, is the long scope. It's from 29th Avenue all the way back in design phase to 15th Street, although right now the funding is only up to Hargrove Road. We've got to go through a complete environmental testing assessment. That normally takes 6 months to a year to complete, and that depends upon what we discover through the environmental testing phase. Then after that will come right-of-way acquisition. There are dozens of parcels of property, and although some properties may be just as wide as 5 feet, if it's not voluntary, it can take months to settle, and you multiply that times dozens and upon dozens, it can take a while. So this project is probably 16 or 17 before beginning. The good news is that the first phase of it is funded. It's one of those things that it will happen. It's just working through the federal regulations related to the recovery dollars. One of the surprises, I'm often asked, what is something that has surprised you since April 27th? And I would tell you that how difficult it is to spend federal recovery dollars. And I see Mr. Tyner back there nodding. He knows because of his district. The money, they don't send you a check and then say, go for it. You have to hit all these milestones. They have to audit those milestones. And then it really takes years to get to that finish line. But we are moving in that direction. It will happen. The next project is the City Walk, a $3.2 million project that is currently under construction now. The contractor will likely ask for a time extension for some weather delays, probably of a range between 60 to 80 days. We still see this project, though, wrapping up in the near future. It's more than just a shared bicycle and pedestrian path. We're also taking this opportunity to improve other infrastructure in the area. I'm pleased with the progress. I see many people live in Forest Lake here tonight. I'd be interested to get your views on how it's gone so far. We're pretty pleased from the city's level about the scope and the way that project has proceeded. The next major project in this district is Prince Avenue improvements. This is from Hargrove Road all the way back to Sumner Place. It's a little over $1 million project. It's currently in environmental testing, engineering, and right-of-way acquisition. And if all goes well, that project could get going in 2016. It will not only improve the roadway, it will include a sidewalk and enhance storm drainage improvements. The Hargrove Hackberry improvements, which I know is of interest to many people, that project is currently still in environmental phase. We are waiting to work through that process before we can begin moving forward. As many of you know, in the late 80s, or in the 80s, a gas station was there at the time and eventually closed. Obviously, old gas stations, as we've done with our downtown, presents environmental concerns and longer delays. We're working through the environmental testing phase, so we're still probably a year to 2 years before seeing that project move forward. We will know, though, in the next 2 to 3 months, the timeline. Because we'll have a clear, from the engineering and the environmental testing that's going to be done, we think from that we're going to be able to know, yes, we can move forward with this project, or no, we're going to have to take a step back and look at a more modified project or look at reallocating those funds. Off the top of my head, it's a split project. It's about $3.2 million through HRIP funds, and the rest of the project is being funded through disaster recovery funds that we have. I wish I had more information for you. Again, in the next 2 to 3 months, we should have a defined plan to come back to the neighborhood groups and to be able to show you. We've taken much of the public input that you've provided us, things like the tunnel. We realized there was a lot of negative feedback about that. I don't think you will see that in any future version of the project going forward, at least if I have a say-so in it. The Greensboro Avenue Drainage Project, which is on south of 10th Avenue along Greensboro near the UPS TTL station. That project is hopefully getting near underway. It's about a $760,000 drainage improvement. Those of you that are familiar with the area, when we have heavy rains, the storm drainage infrastructure there is not capable of handling it. We're going to be upsizing those pipes, and hopefully that dip that you get when you go down Greensboro during those heavy rain events, that water building up will hopefully, it shouldn't be there anymore once this project is complete. Next is citywide resurfacing. You may have seen the article in the paper. The council is allocated $2.2 million. We're working on hopefully some unique ways of trying to find some additional dollars to add to it. Paving is one of the greatest infrastructure needs that we have right now in our city. Now, many of you are in the recovery zone. And if you're in the recovery zone, you're not going to fall under this. You will likely see paving in your area in probably 12 to 24 months down the line. These dollars are for non-recovery zone. We have about $6 million set aside for the recovery paving area. But as I mentioned with the federal dollars, we still have to do environmental testing with just simple paving. So it's going to take a while to get all of that complete. But we will be moving forward with this project, hopefully sometime in the next few months. I may propose this coming Tuesday to the council we delay for 2 more months. We can add some additional gas tax money, plus I know I'm getting into the weeds here. The Alabama Trust Fund sends us a check every April. We could use some of those proceeds to add a few more streets to our paving contract. We have something that, again, it's not Lift Station 21 interceptor improvements. This is a sewer project that we have. It's near Elm Street, back in that area. It's not a sexy project when you talk about upgrading a lift station, but it's very expensive, and it's something that the city does on an ongoing basis, and that project will be ongoing. We also have a lot of water projects that we're moving forward in District 2. I'll briefly go through them. These projects are being funded through our recovery dollars. They're currently in engineering and/or right-of-way acquisition. And hopefully we'll be getting underway in late 15, maybe early 16 with several of these projects. We have one going on in Glendale Gardens in Avalon, the Downs, and the Prince Avenue around Harrison and 27th. These water projects will be going on in those districts. It's basically to improve water pressure in these areas. Part of our infrastructure assessment coming after the tornado was we had many areas of our recovery zone that didn't have adequate water pressure, and we worked very hard to use some of our dollars to improve that. Last, Operation Clean Sweep. After the tornado, when people's homes were destroyed or businesses were destroyed, we allowed them to keep their foundations in place. And the reason why is because many people could go back and build off the foundations that they had. Now, that actually countered the city's property maintenance code. The city's property maintenance code, as it states in the slide, requires when a house is demolished that you have to remove the foundation. After the tornado, the council gave me basically dictatorial powers. I really enjoyed that, by the way. And I basically, by executive order, waived that requirement because I felt like people didn't know what they were going to do, and we had 5,300 homes that were impacted by this. So I felt at the time, let's give people time and space to deal with their insurance companies and deal with rebuilding and everything else. Looking back, I probably wouldn't have recommended that because what we had in too many cases were homeowners and business owners who just left their slabs there and never came back to clean them up. I know the council, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Tyner especially, we all waited for about 2 years, and then last year we initiated what's called Operation Clean Sweep. We're going in section by section and working with property owners and trying to get these slabs removed. Clearly, we want to do it voluntarily. That is the way we'd all prefer it, but we are now even taking these cases to court. So it's hard to see, but this is in part of the tornado path. The red are the areas that we've gone in, had them removed, and have closed them out. The yellow areas are the ones that are in depositions right now that we've gone to court over these slabs. The purple are the ones that are still are pending going to deposition in court. The blue are the ones that which I don't think we have much in, except in that section, we're processing and going to court. And the green, we have identified them, we just haven't moved into any of the new phase. This has been a terrific effort by our staff. If you think about the time it takes between the inspections of it, the notification, the legal notices, and eventually having to go to court with it. So if you have areas, if you're in the tornado zone and you have areas where there are still slabs and you're not sure it's been reported, please contact 311 and we will make sure that we get them out there and identified. This is the same shot just with the neighborhood overlay. And here's some more in the area of District 2. I know it's difficult to see with the screen, but I wanted to give you a sense that the city is out there and we're working very hard to address that. I do want to talk about 311. If you don't use it, please use it. It's a way we're able at the city to data track all the issues and concerns that you have in your neighborhood. This district last year got had 26,449 calls into 311. Out of that, it generated 3,822 work orders. And out of those work orders, the number one was high grass. The second was cart repair. The third was wanting a new cart. Fourth was non-operative vehicles, which is a little bit different than sometimes we see in other districts. 5 was stray animals. 6 was missed their trash pickup. 7 was broken water meter. 8 was missed garbage pickup. 9 were code violation, probably occupancy built in there. And then the last one was broken water line. So most of these are what we see in other council districts for the most part. So that was kind of your top 10, but by far, overgrown grass was number one. And the reason why is tornado. During the summer months, people whose property was destroyed, they haven't rebuilt, they let their grass grow. We go out there now and if we cut their grass, we go back and ask for payment. So that's probably the reason why that was number one. In terms of 911 calls for this district, we had 21,153 calls into 911. We saw increased calls between the months of May and August compared to the prior year. We saw decreased calls from the prior year from January to April, and we had an overall district decrease in calls in to 911 for District 2. Last year, you represented almost 9% of the total calls as a council district into 911. Lastly, just talk about the city's financial outlook. The city continues to be financially strong. I can't tell you how proud I am of this fact. It speaks to the great management of our city council. Not many cities in the United States could cash flow about $44 million, and that's what we had to do during the tornado. And we did it without borrowing any money, and we did it without raising taxes. So the strength of our city has stayed strong, and since that time, we've had to go back to the bond market for refinancing of bonds, and both Moody's and S&P have kept us at one of the strongest ratings in Alabama. To show you how important this is, on the Monday following the tornado, Moody's and S&P demanded a conference call with myself and our staff to make sure we could pay the bonds, the current debt that we had. It was, oh, I hope you guys are doing okay. We need to see your financials to make sure that you can make your debt service payment. That's how serious they take that, especially out of the economic crash of 2009, where rating agencies had a bad habit of not always rating accurately debt. So it's important to us, and we've been able to maintain it. In fact, Moody's and S&P believe that we will probably get a ratings upgrade, hopefully at our next time. So we're very proud of that. And if we didn't have the tornado and didn't have to expend so much of our reserves, we would have probably have already had been there. To show you, though, how we compare in terms of taxes is another point of pride. What you see here are the 20 largest cities in Alabama, and Tuscaloosa is highlighted. We're the 5th largest city. Now, we have a combined tax rate of 9%. But of that, the city gets 2%, which goes straight to the city, and we get 20% of the 2-cent countywide sales tax, if that makes any sense. And if you add it all together, you could say we get 2.5 cents. Probably a little bit, it's probably overestimating a little bit. Birmingham has 4, Montgomery has 3.5, Mobile has 5, Huntsville has 4.5, and there's the city next. So that's how we compare against our peers. In fact, if you take the 20 largest cities, we're number 20. So I hope that's an indication that we're doing our best at the city. And when you compare us against our peer groups, we're doing quite well. And unlike many of these cities, we don't have occupational tax either. So we don't use the occupational tax, and we have low property tax. So we're overall, I'm really proud of how we've been able to accomplish that. Now, why did I tell you all this? Because you've elected me, you've given me the honor of being with you for 10 years almost, which I can't believe it's gone by that fast. And I think the reason why you keep me around, even when you don't necessarily disagree with me, or agree with me, is you know at least I've told you what I believe to be the truth. And this is where we are. As a city, we can continue to do the things that we've always done with the current rate of revenues that we have. We can keep a great fire department. We can keep a great police department. We can continue the recovery with the federal dollars. Those things won't change. We'll continue to manage our house well. What we won't be able to do, though, is solve 69 South. We will not be able to solve things like McWright's Ferry Road. We'll never get the train trestle open. We'll likely never get Jack Warner Parkway rebuilt, because those projects are in the tens of millions, if you add them all together, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's where we are. And the other dynamic that we're facing, and other municipalities in Alabama are facing, is that internet sales tax. The Alabama Department of Revenue this year estimates that 10% of sales taxes paid in Alabama are now lost to internet sales. I don't know if I think that number may be high, but let's say it is the number. For the city of Tuscaloosa, that's $5 million a year. That's a lot of money. Now, it's going to take Congress to solve that problem. So if you talk to your congressman or congresswoman, please encourage them, because to solve this problem, it's not like we're asking for a new tax, but I think it's only fair to our small businesses that they're paying taxes. Well, somebody on the internet should have to pay taxes as well. So that's going to be important down the line, because that's certainly going to be a consideration. We don't have many ways, nor should we, to tax, but sales tax is how we butter the bread at the city of Tuscaloosa and most municipalities. So that is an issue that down the line that I hope you can help us get solved, because $5 million a year, That's a lot. And kind of give you an example, since we're at a fire station, the pumper trucks, the smaller trucks you see on those bays, that's $500,000 per truck. Per truck. The ladder truck is $1.1 million. By the time we go buy a new one, it'd be 1.2, 1.3. To keep this station operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is about $900,000 a year in operational cost, just to keep this one station going. So what we do at the city is expensive. But again, those things can continue, but if we're going to do these big mega things, it's going to require new revenue. Now, somebody probably a couple years running against me will say, oh, that mayor doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, it may be true, but I think I know this one pretty well. I hope coming down the line that we can have a further discussion. I think the council is going to want to have this discussion. I think the community is going to want to have this discussion, because we have some huge transportation needs in our community that are not going to get solved, and the state government's not going to solve that problem. The federal government's not going to solve that problem. We're going to have to look locally. Crime is an ongoing discussion that obviously we talk about it every day at the city, but we're putting a renewed focus, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, and you may have seen this, the state is having a lot of dialogue regarding corrections. Right now, our state prison system is 192% above capacity. Now, what that means in layman's terms is that those that are committing crimes are not going into the judicial system. I'll give you an example. August a year ago, a young girl in West End was shot in her home, four-year-old, by a young man that we had arrested 6 weeks earlier on manslaughter charges. And you're probably thinking, what is he doing back out on the streets? Well, he's out on the streets because our judges have nowhere to place those who are committing crimes, and they're having to triage and basically say, okay, I've got to put the worst of the worst of the worst behind here and then put the rest out and hope that somehow, some way, additional crimes will not be committed. Give you another example. About a year and a half ago, we partnered with the ATF, the FBI, and the DEA for an ICE sweep. It's a federal program called Isolating the Criminal Element. And through this program, we're able to identify, or we believe, felons who have a gun illegally, or a felon shouldn't have a gun. So we go in, we do a sweep, and if they have a gun, they will go to federal prison, and they will likely go a minimum of 6 to 8 years, and they'll go to Montana or New Hampshire or somewhere far, far away. We did a sweep. We arrested 20 individuals, and most of them were on our most wanted list. The 20 individuals that we arrested, we had arrested in the previous 2 years 202 times. So I will tell you that the police department is putting every asset available into crime fighting. We're about to, but it's not enough, clearly. We just hired 12 new additional officers the year before last. The city, by the way, and as an aside, 42% of our general fund budget goes to fire and police. So 42 cents out of every dollar we spend goes into fire and police. So it is a heavy budgetary focus of the city. But if we took 289 cops and we went to 600 tomorrow, I don't know if it can overall change that dynamic that you talked about. Until we get true structural reform in our correction system, I just don't see how the dynamic changes dramatically, because we can arrest and rearrest. And the problem is just, in my opinion, is just as bad on the juvenile side. And I think you saw with the home invasions scenario that we've lived through the last 48 hours. We can't speak publicly about that, but we're in the same situation. So I would encourage you to talk, and we are talking to our state legislature. And boy, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. There's a lot of cameras in here. I'll probably regret saying it. But what often happens is what I call a Montgomery two-step. If they underfund transportation, or they underfund corrections, or they underfund mental health, those problems generally manifest themselves at the local level. You experience crime, or a bridge is needing replaced, or the roads are not being paved, or whatever it is. And and who do you call? Well, you call your mayor, or you call your city council member. And that's good for them. If you're in Montgomery or DC, that's exactly what they want. Because they can stand up and say, I'm cut government waste, or they can discuss some ideological movement, and they don't have to solve the real problems we're talking about here tonight. And that corrections issue is one of those real problems. So, understanding that dynamic, what do we do going forward? When you look at our big 5 crime stats, they're actually trending down, but they're not trending down like this. And none of us are satisfied with just kind of this incremental going down. Chief is examining a lot of new tactics that we're not ready to talk about today, but we are about to take on a different type of policing in the months and years ahead. 2 weekends ago, the mayors of Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and Huntsville, we met with our police chiefs to discuss best practices. And we're going to be modeling much of those best practices that we've learned from our colleagues. And by the way, we're doing a lot of things right. And we are going to take on a new dynamic. Simultaneously, we are going to be engaging the community about doing its part. And Ms. McKinstry and I had this conversation today, and I know she has been on this. We've got to have the community step up as well. You see an abandoned car, let us know. You see crime activity, you got to let us know. You've got a kid that's falling through the cracks, you got to let us know. Let us get in on the proactive side as much as possible. I'm working with Reverend Tyshawn Gardner and Dr. Samori Pruitt on some really exciting ideas. This May or June, we hope to have a summit in Tuscaloosa to flesh out more of these ideas. So you're right. Whether the crime statistics do this, it feels different. And we definitely are working hard to address it. In Birmingham, over the last 4 years, they've been able to cut their homicide rate in half, which is quite an accomplishment. And we were talking to Chief Roper about what strategies and tactics have they been using, and it was really fascinating to listen. But you know what he said was the number one reason of crime among our youth? Respect or disrespect. And the second reason was because people in the community who do not talk about it or complain, they create an environment where they believe crime is then accepted within the community. It becomes the community norm. And in communities where respect is given and also where they report crimes, they have seen a decrease. Because if you don't, the message we send when we don't report crime is that we accept this type of behavior. When I ran for mayor in 2005, we talked about doing 311. And at the time, there were less than a dozen cities that were doing it. And the day after I got elected, the first phone call I made was to Doug Taylor, who was our IT director at the time. And I said, Doug, please tell me that we can do this. I felt like we could do it. I'd read everything that you could read when I was running for mayor. And Doug said, absolutely, I thought you might win. We've already got some ideas in place. And when we initiated the program, we thought, will we ever get to the point where we get 100 calls a day? How many do we get, Regina? A lot. Well over 300 calls a day we get into the system. And the reason why it works, not because of me, and not because, well, the council. It's because of the council. And it's Regina and her team, and it's our departments out in the field. Since there doesn't like there's many more questions, I'll brag for a second. We have the finest staff of any municipality in Alabama. We have 1,358 employees at the city. I wish you could see the top quality people you have working for you. These are dedicated men and women who just do an amazing job. Many could go somewhere else, but they just have a love and passion for service. And I'm just as proud as I can to work with them every single day.